Hello everyone, I'm Jen and I make useful English Lit study videos on Shakespeare, poetry, fiction, literary ideas and more to help you become a literary expert. So if that sounds exactly like what you want, then make sure that you hit the subscribe button below. In today's video, I'm going to be addressing one of the more frequently asked questions I've been getting from a lot of you guys, and that is, how are GCSE A-level and university level literature essays different? And when I say A-level, it's probably A-level equivalent. So if you're doing your IB or APs, etc., then that all falls within that category. So, I mean, yeah, fair question, because in a way, all of these essays require us to do kind of similar things, right? Like analyzing an author's use of language, form and structure to create deeper meaning, using our contextual knowledge to inform our interpretation, and communicating our views in a fluent and grammatical way, yada, 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 right? So we have to do all of that in all three stages, right? So what is it that sets these three levels of lit essay writing apart? So a lot of students have messaged me to say that while they managed well and had even excelled at GCSE level lit, they found themselves really struggling once they got to A-level. And some English undergrads have also told me that a lot of the GCSE essay writing skills they had learned ended up holding them back from getting a first or a high GPA for the non-UK students of you watching. So clearly then, there is a difference between a great GCSE A-level and a uni-level essay. So in the rest of this video, I'm going to be breaking down once and for all the different approaches to each stage of lit essay writing. So sit tight and let's dive straight into it. Now, at the GCSE level, the mandate is pretty straightforward. Fulfill all of your assessment objectives as stated in the marking scheme, and you've pretty much got a shoe-in for at least a grade 8, if not a top band 9. To fulfill the AOs, you'll need to convey what theme or deeper message a literary text is trying to convey, look at how the author conveys said theme or message through a range of literary techniques, which span, of course, the grand triumvirate of language, form, and structure. And I have an entire video with examples of language, form, and structure techniques, so make sure you check that out if you need a primer on this here. You're also going to need to find the relevant quotations from the text and then embed these quotations within your own explanations seamlessly and fluently. As for the literary techniques to use at GCSE level, you want to stick to the staple bread and butter devices. So nothing too fancy or advanced. Things like simile, metaphor, and alliteration are fine for poetry. Narrative point of view, atmosphere, and tone are good for fiction. Dramatic irony, foreshadowing, and sometimes breaking the fourth wall, i.e. an aside, are more than enough for drama. In terms of context, which is something that tends to confuse quite a lot of students, the task is to understand the broader political, socio-cultural trends during the time when the author was writing, and then thinking about how these trends might have influenced the author's desire to write their work. So for instance, Shakespeare could have been motivated to write Macbeth, a work about the deadly consequences of regicide, right after the newly anointed King James I had narrowly escaped a political coup by Catholic insurgents, which is, of course, a lot of you would know to be the Gunpowder Plot in 1605. So given that James I was Shakespeare's key patron, it's pretty obvious why Shakespeare would have wanted to sound a cautionary note to the public with his play Macbeth. So really, at GCSE level, your priority is to communicate very clearly what theme and ideas you think a text conveys, what stylistic and structural techniques are used to convey these ideas, and why the author of the text would have felt compelled to write their work in the first place. One more point. Your essays don't have to be too long, especially at GCSE level. I've actually seen exemplar essays that are no longer than 500 words for the Shakespeare paper, and ones that are shorter than 300 words even for the unseen poetry section. So as long as you've answered the question, really, you're golden. What about A-level or A-level equivalent? Obviously, the foundational skills covered for GCSE success continue to apply, if not even more, because at A-level, the expectation is that you'll be able to apply a nuanced, complex take on your texts. What applying nuance and complexity in literary interpretation means is that we're able to recognize and accept that different and sometimes even contradictory qualities or ideas can occur at the same time or reside within the same character. So for example, Jay Gatsby is someone who has great emotional depth, as evidenced by his lasting love for Daisy, and yet he is also someone who's marked by a certain degree of spiritual hollowness in his misguided pursuit of bootlegging wealth and slavish attachment to materialism. Likewise, the the reader may feel a sense of distaste for Gatsby's novel-riche crassness and naive delusion about Daisy's affections, but we are just as equally inclined to feel a deep empathy and pity for the man's tragic fate and romanticism. So compared to GCSE level interpretation, A-level requires that we come up with multiple alternative ways of reading the same text, and to be comfortable with holding these varying interpretations in our head while also communicating them confidently. By the way, guys, if you find this video helpful so far, I'd massively appreciate it if you could hit the thumbs up button below and subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss out on any of my top grade lit study content going forward. I'd also encourage you to check out my membership program by clicking the join button below if you want exclusive access to members only study content and make special video requests. I'll see you there. The other distinguishing element for A-level essays is the need to show intertextual awareness, and that's often about considering how similar themes and ideas are presented in different styles and forms in different texts, and by extension, how the respective author's historical, personal, and cultural circumstances would have influenced their differences in portrayal. Now, speaking of multiple alternative interpretations, you're going to need to also include secondary criticism in your A-level essays. But I see so many students misunderstanding what they should actually be doing with secondary criticism. Now, the point of engaging with secondary criticism in our study of literature isn't just to find some random academic who seems to be saying something that sounds super smart and then copying and pasting their words into our own essays so that somehow we also sound super smart by proxy. No. Now, first, a lot of literary criticism out there is actually poorly written, more so a product of pseudo-intellectual posturing than a reflection of genuine academic rigor. Sorry, just saying. That's my own opinion. And by the way, if something seems way too complex for you to understand, it's probably not very good criticism or writing in the first place, because the mark of true intelligence is often crystal clarity. In any case, real intelligence is conveyed through clear, creative, and critical thinking, which means you need to be challenging a literary critic's views with your own unique viewpoint, clearly communicated. And so your job is to imagine yourself having an intellectual debate against whatever literary critic you want to cite in your essay. Now, I mentioned in my video on how to use literary criticism, and you can check that out here, that the cardinal no-no for using secret is to simply parrot or airlift a quote from some journal or article, and then just plotting it in your paragraphs and claiming agreement with their view. Doing this doesn't add any depth or persuasiveness to your argument, nor does it tell the examiner what you think about the text, which in turn makes everything a futile endeavor. So be careful that you do not fall into this trap. Okay, so if GCSE essays are about checking off assessment objective boxes, no more, no less, and A-level essays are about showing more nuance, sophistication, and complexity in your interpretations, then what does a great university-level lit essay look like? Well, of course, it still builds on those fundamentals, i.e. you still need to be fulfilling whatever course objectives are required, and every lit essay, of course, is an exercise in applying nuance, sophistication, and open-mindedness to reading any text. But to become a truly first-class top student for university-level English, you're going to need to flip the entire model on its head. Instead of simply presenting an argument that's valid and well supported by evidence, you need to be thinking out of the box, which sometimes means proposing a point of view that might come across a little unconventional or even controversial. One way to do this is to imagine yourself as a literary critic, like an English professor, and in order to get your research published, you need to be coming up with an interpretation that is so special that no one else out there has ever thought of. And this is also partly why there's so much crazy and sometimes even nonsensical English journal articles out in the wild west of literary scholarship. But anyway, it's worth taking a page out of this publish or perish playbook as a guiding reference for how you want to be approaching your texts for maximum success on university English courses. So whereas previously in high school, you were probably told to toe the line, check the boxes, and memorize a whole bunch of quotations, at university, your greatest chance of success as a literature student is to challenge conventions, be bold and creative with your views, and to throw out that old script of whatever PEEL or whatever formulaic acronym or top grade hack you've been taught to keep you within gradable boundaries. I personally learned this the hard way myself, because in first year, I just basically swallowed mountain loads of secondary criticism at the expense of my own creative thinking. So I eventually came to realize that rather than reading endless stacks of secondary criticism, which of course I did a lot of early on at university, I was much better off just sitting down with myself, closing my eyes, and sometimes even closing my book, and really thinking long and hard about what I, Jen, think what the text is saying, what the blind spots of certain critic ABC are, what sort of interpretation I have not seen from all the reading I have done so far. So bottom line then, to excel at university literature, you need to stand out with a unique, creative, and refreshing point of view, perhaps even at the expense of coming across a little bit weird. But hey, who cares? And there you have it, guys. I hope this helps clarify what it takes for you to do well in a GCSE versus A-level lit essay, and how the game is completely different when it comes to university English. To be honest, it was only when I got really comfortable with speaking my mind and putting forth my creative ideas that I achieved a breakthrough in the depth and quality of my literary analysis. So if you're watching this and your goal is to excel at lit and get really good at it, I definitely encourage you to embrace this mindset as well. For your next video, I recommend that you watch my video on the 3 biggest mistakes that students make when writing literature essays, or at least from my experience of observing and my personal experience. And that's going to help you avoid some of the key pitfalls in essay writing. I also have an entire playlist on improving essay writing skills, which you can check out right here. Hit that thumbs up button below if you found this video helpful in any way, so that YouTube will spread it to more passionate, top grade lit students like yourself, and that you can encourage me to keep creating these study videos for you. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and switch on that bell notification so you don't miss out on any of my future weekly videos. And finally, you can also consider joining my membership program for exclusive video requests and essay review perks. Check that out in the description box below. And as always, I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!